Hello there, my name is Dan and the main purpose of my channel is to show people how to grow their own fruit and vegetables no matter what size garden, allotment or growing space they do indeed have. So over the last few years I've been working on a partial self-sufficiency project here in Essex, UK, and I'd love to show you how to do the same. So if you like my work, please feel free to like and share, and if you'd like to be notified of any other videos I put up, please feel free to subscribe. So the other day I had a great question from a viewer who states that they move around a lot, so therefore they're asking me how they could go about growing their own food. And this is just such a big thing, if you will. So many people don't live in one place for a long time. People move, maybe people rent, or they move because of work or whatever. So today I'm going to be talking about things that you can implement into your gardening so that you can indeed grow some of your own food, even if you don't live in one place for that long. So what we'll do is we'll start down here with these strawberries. Now, one thing to consider, okay, with regards to strawberries, yes, they're fantastic, yes, they're delicious, and it's very satisfying when you get a good crop and they look beautiful as well. You've got to think, right, if you grow strawberries in containers such as these, or indeed in the ground, now, they take up space, but you only get fruit for a certain amount of time during the year. The other time of that, you're not getting any fruit, okay? So this can be an issue. But if you wanted to grow your own strawberries, you can grow them in containers such as this. You can take the containers around with you, you know, from address to address, whatever, and you've got the strawberry plants with you, okay? So another thing, if you look at this tree here, now this is a fig tree, okay, variety Madeleine de Deux. Now, figs grow very well in containers, okay? They benefit from root restriction because they don't, if you grow them in the ground, sometimes they can put out a lot of foliage and not so much fruit. That's what's said anyway. So if you grow them in containers, it helps to restrict the root, and therefore hopefully the tree, bush, whatever, will focus its energy on producing fruit. So figs could be a good one if you don't live in one place for too long, grown in a container. Now, blueberries incredibly lend themselves to be grown in containers because they like ericaceous growing medium, pH of 4.5 to 5.5, okay, acidic. Anything other than that, they tend to not do well. So maybe you could consider some blueberries in containers such as this, and you can take them around with you, and it's generally an advantage to have them in containers because you may not have the required soil type where you live, where if you grow them in containers, you can give them their correct growing medium. Okay, so with regards to grapes, now this vine is actually grown in the ground. This is variety Lakemont seedless, and it's producing very well. So you may think that if you don't have a place to plant a grapevine in the open ground, and if you're not going to stay there, why would you? Now, you can actually grow grapes in containers, okay? I made a video on this a few months ago, so I'll link that down below. And basically, if you're going to grow grapes in containers, what you do is you work up to about a 60-litre pot, okay? Because they need to be able to put their roots out, okay, into the pot. Now, check that video out. I think you'll find it very beneficial, and it's very good to grow grapes in containers because not only are they incredibly lovely tasting and add an exotic thing to the garden, it's very, very possible to do as well. And, you know, who wouldn't want to grow their own grapes, eh? Now, learning about microclimates is a very good thing to do. So see this polytunnel here, this is 3 metres by 2 metres. So if you're not living in a place for too long, you may not want to put one up something like this, but you can actually get miniature cold frames, miniature greenhouses, things like that, and you can take them with you, you can take them apart, and you can grow tomatoes in them, things like that, whatever you want really. And that's a great way to do it, because when you're done with it, pack it up, take it away, move it to your next address. So there we go. Okay, so I've got this vegetable bed here, and this is actually in a raised bed that I built a few months ago. But what you could consider doing or having is a planter, okay? You could either buy one or you could build one yourself. So let's say if you had a planter, okay, that was about 1 metre by 1 metre or 2 metres by 1, you think of the amount of veg you could grow in something like that, okay? And once again, when you're finished with it, when it's time to move, you could pack that up, take it apart, and take that with you to the next address and put it up again. Now, speed of what you're growing could be a consideration. For example, let's say you're living at an address for 1 month, okay? Now, throughout about, say, February, providing the soil is warm enough, February till up until maybe September, October, or March until September, October, you can sow things like radishes, okay, which crop about, or can crop, for about 4 weeks after you sowed them. So that's absolutely fantastic. Another quick cropper would be something like spinach, okay, and with regards to something like first early potatoes. Now, growing potatoes in containers, okay, I'll link that video down below, okay. Use varieties such as first earlies, such as Swift and Rocket, okay, which crop about 10 or so weeks, maybe even less than that after planting. So let's say you're living in a place for 3 months, okay, and it's the right time of year, you could grow yourself some first early potatoes, okay, which would be a great thing to do. Really nutritious crop to grow and perfectly possible to produce a decent sized crop in a small space of time. Now, okay, this is one thing that I like to implement. So you can see that I've got down here, these are dwarf beans and they are growing in some polystyrene containers. Containers, pots, buckets, tubs, whatever you want to call them, okay? Now, let's say, you know, you were going to move house tomorrow. Now, what you could do is take this entire container with you and these can do their thing in their new address. So maybe, let's say you've got loads of radishes in here and some spinach as well. Just simply take it with you. Now you can also get a little bit exotic with this as well and mix it up. So you can see here I've got this banana tree variety Musa Cavendish, okay, and it's in a container down here. You can see that it's put out some pups as well, otherwise known as, what do you want to call them? You could call them saplings if you wanted, I suppose, suckers, whatever. There they are, shoots, and you know, you could once again take this with you. You know, don't let things stop you. Okay, so you see here I've got some sowing plants I've sown already, or getting ready. Now I've got some chard here and some more chard here, okay, and I've also done some more sowing here of some more chard, and you can see what I've got. No, in fact this is kale actually, so you can see they're coming up now. Once again, these are all movable, very light, take them with you, no problem at all. And you know, this the caterpillars have had this, but there we go, that's just one of those things. Okay, over here now, if you see what I've got here, these shelves, okay, you can actually get things like this, and they've got sort of like this same green mesh covering over like this, a miniature greenhouse, okay. It can be a great thing, and you don't need a big space for it. Now, you can see here, like, I've got some chili plants. So this is variety Onavec, okay. Many of you may have seen, you know, when they was really loaded with the chilies on there. So you can grow chilies in containers once again here, and I've got grapes here, look, all lovely. Cuttings I've taken, you know, something like that. Imagine if you've got a cutting like that, look, and you slowly work up to putting that in a 60-litre pot. That could be great, couldn't it? Because, you know, the vine can almost tell a story, if you will, of the different addresses it's sort of lived at. And then when you get to the place that you may finally decide to stay, you can say, oh yes, this came round the places with me. Now this is a nice idea for you. So this is a cherry tree. This is variety Stella. Okay, the first self-fertile variety of cherry that was introduced to the UK. Okay, now this is on a rootstock, and it's a dwarfing rootstock, and this is otherwise known as a minaret. Okay, minaret. Check them out. Now these can actually be grown in tubs, okay, and they're really good. Now with this one I've got it in the ground and I'm letting it sort of take on more of the appearance of a small tree. That's what I'm doing here. But let's say you really wanted to have your own little backyard orchard, your own movable orchard, so you could have a minaret cherry, minaret plum, minaret apple. You know, don't let it stop you, okay? Do your research into dwarfing rootstocks, okay, which are said to be suitable for growing in pots. And I have even heard some people say that if you're going to grow a tree in a pot, to use a half standard rootstock. Now I'm not sure where I sit on this one, because everybody's got their own opinion, but do some research, okay, onto dwarfing rootstocks. This will help you very much and open up a lot of doors for you. Now I'll show what I've got here. So these are in fact apple rootstocks, okay, and this is rootstock M27, okay, which is a very dwarfing rootstock. Now what I'm going to be doing is doing some grafting on these next year. Now I've got a grafting playlist, and grafting is a way of propagating varieties of apples, okay. Check out my playlist. I think if you're into this sort of thing, you may find it interesting. Basically, what you do is you cut it here, or one way I will be doing it is cutting it here and grafting another variety onto that. So you could look at this and you can buy rootstocks of different sorts. You can look into budding as well. But let's say if I wanted to, so I've got quite a few here, you know, I could graft a different variety of apple onto each one, and I could take these with me, you know, to other addresses. So I think one could look into this. Now if you take a pot like this, okay, or bucket, trug, container, whatever you want to call it, if you had maybe 2 or 3 spinach plants in there, I think you could do well with that. Okay, so this is one for you. Now, I purchased this tree here, and it's variety Gala apple. It hasn't got any fruit on it this year because it's in its new situation, but there we go. Now, you can see how small this tree is, but in its previous location, actually, it used to produce a good crop of about 9 or 10 good size apples. Okay, so just because a tree is a small one doesn't necessarily mean that the crop will be small. Okay, so there we go. Now, let's say it's just not possible for you to grow your own food because you're working all over the world, for example, all over the country, you're moving about or whatever, and it's just not going to happen. Well, what you could do is use this time to gain information, to learn. You know, do a bit of reading every day, watch a few YouTube videos every day, okay? And then just slowly start to build your knowledge. Use your time. Remember that gardening is a long-term thing, or can be. So you want to be learning what you can if it's not possible for you to sort of be a hands-on gardener. Okay, now I'll just show you something here. Now this one is a nectarine tree, variety Lord Napier, okay, which I've got growing in a container down here, sunk into the ground. That's one thing you could consider doing. You could maybe consider growing, you know, something like a peach or a nectarine in a container. Now you need, if you're going to get into this, okay, you need to look into peach leaf curl, okay? So if you're sort of relatively new to this or you don't want to go into it too much, something like, you know, an apple or a plum or pear may be a better choice. Well, I could go on all day if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. But if you like my work, please feel free to like, share and subscribe. Put your questions down below. I'm trying to answer more and more questions. And check me out on Dan_Home Gardens on Instagram if indeed you're interested. And now we say goodbye. Don't look at me like that. Thanks for viewing. See you next time.